Broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA studios, this is Politics and Profits. I'm Rick Amato. On September 11, 2001, FDNY Lieutenant Joe Torrillo was buried alive under Twin Tower number 1. That was only half the story. After being rescued, Joe Torrillo was buried alive again under Twin Tower number 2 and rescued again. He joins me now. Good to see you, Joe.
Thanks. Thank you, Vic, for the opportunity.
Do you ever say to yourself, I am the luckiest individual in the world, why me?
You know what? Originally, I didn't say that. For about 10 years after 9/11, I suffered silently something I didn't want to talk about, didn't want to verbalize. I actually had survivors' anger. I was actually angry that I had survived, and I know that's very weird, and a lot of people aren't going to believe it, but I couldn't understand how God took 343 firefighters and let them all march up to heaven together in that group that will always be known as heroes, and I wasn't allowed to be in that group, and I didn't understand if I wasn't good enough, I didn't have the honor to be with them. And after traveling and speaking all around the country to various groups of people, everybody, everywhere I went would tell me the same exact thing. They say, Joe, God saved your life for a reason. He's got a bigger mission for you in this world and on this earth. And you know what now, Rick, I have to tell you, I really believe it. And it really took this huge, huge burden and this tremendous weight off of my shoulders. And I'm really grateful for that.
What do you think that mission is that God has for you?
You know what? I think he always had a mission for me, even before 9/11, which is why I survived. I think that my mission is to make our country the reunited States of America. Long before Donald Trump wanted to make this country great again, I start off on a mission to make our country the reunited States of America, to bring people together and to resurrect patriotism and love for what this country represents to every other country on earth.
Were you a religious person, a God-believing person prior to this event?
That's a good question. I went to 12 years of very strict Catholic schooling, and after graduating Catholic high school, I really didn't have the connection to religion in the way I thought I could and should, and there was always that empty void in me. I didn't understand why I was in this dark place and always struggling for this part of my life that wanted commitment and belief. And one day, about 20 years after I joined the fire department, I was in the firehouse and I was in the bathroom, got up in the morning like all of us. I took a shower and I was shaving, and this patch on my shoulder, I saw it in the mirror, and for the first time in my life I realized what this patch represented, that I had become a small part of a very great thing. I had become a part of a department considered the greatest emergency service on the face of the earth, and this patch really meant my life and my commitment on this world. And it kind of it brought back the religion, the feeling that I needed, because I was really a part of something where we lived what we believed in. And as a Catholic, that was very hard, or as a Christian, I was always very lost in Christian beliefs. And you know, people talk about, you know, all these Christian values, but how many people really keep the
Right.
10 Commandments?
Right.
Here it is. I have vowed to protect life and property. I'm becoming a fireman, even at the risk of laying down my life so that somebody else might live in an incident. And I did that many times. And on September 11th, when I was laying underneath the building, I realized that vow that I had taken. And for the first time in my life, I felt this power, the power that I needed, even as I thought I was dying.
I heard you speak before. I heard you speak previously. And from what I recollect, you laid there under Twin Tower number 1, Twin Tower number 2, and you could hear the aches and groans and the cries of your fellow firemen. You could hear their pagers going off every 45 seconds. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, here it is. I was right outside the South Tower just before it came down, and I was adamant, you know, about trying to tell as many people as I can that I encountered that the buildings were doomed to collapse. Nobody could understand why I was saying that.
You were a structural engineering student.
Yes, I was. Before I was a firefighter, and two of my professors were working for the concrete contractor on the Twin Towers, George Bory and Louis Radioli, and they were able to take me on a class trip to watch the towers going up and to study this new novel steel support system. And as an engineer, as an engineering student, I would marvel that they seem to be so lightweight and flimsy, and were missing what I thought was the requisite steel to hold those buildings up, and so radically different from the Empire State Building. So nonetheless, I graduate engineering school, I take a test for the fire department, go through the academy, and then they place me in the firehouse right across the street from the Twin Towers to begin my career. And now I'm back as a fireman protecting them and not an engineering student studying them. But on September 11th, all those memories came back to me on those field trips as I was looking at those towers and knowing very, very well that they were doomed to collapse, but nobody would believe me. It's just too obvious to me, and I do a whole presentation now. I go all around the world. I put a presentation together called The Design and Collapse of the Twin Towers, and anybody that's ever heard of my has ever attended my presentation will tell you they learned more in that 1 hour than they've ever heard in the last 15 and a half years. And I'm not bragging, I'm just being honest. And my opinions and my presentation do not represent anything to do with the New York City Fire Department. It's my presentation, and take whatever you want from it.
Tell us about that day, September 11th.
Well, that was a very interesting day. A lot of people heard a lot of stories that surround that day. As far as me, I was actually on my way to a press conference in Rockefeller Center. I had been involved in designing a new action figure for little kids called Billy Blazes, a part of Fisher-Price's Other Rescue Heroes. And I had been working on that project since January 2001. And I chose the date of September 11th to introduce Billy Blazes to the world, because September 11th was 9/11. We were having a 9/11 emergency-themed day, and I thought that would be very apropos. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, every TV station, every newspaper reporter was waiting for me in Rockefeller Center to introduce for the first time a new rescue hero, a New York City firefighter, Billy Blazes, when the first plane hit the tower. And on my way to press conference, I had to make a decision. Do I go to the press conference, or I go to my firehouse where I began my career across the street from the South Tower? And that's exactly where I ended up. And that night, when the sun set, and the following morning, people realized Superman's not real, Batman and Robin's not real, Spider-Man's not real. The only children's rescue hero who ever came to life on September 11th was Billy Blazes from Fisher-Price. It's just a very true, ironic story.
Do you stay in touch with survivors or family members of survivors to this day?
I do, as a matter of fact. Not that much anymore. I am a tour guide at Ground Zero, and there are many other victims' families and other firefighters, first responders, and second responders who act in that capacity, where we volunteer and share our story with people that come to New York City.
In our final remaining moments, anything you'd like our viewers across America to know, anything about Joe Torrillo, about that day, anything?
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for the opportunity, and I'm really grateful that you asked that question. And I'm not here to promote Joe Torrillo. I'm not here to make this the Joe Torrillo sob story. I'm here to put out a message, and it's very simple. 315 Americans in the United States of America, handfuls of people spread out throughout the 50 states who don't really believe that they live in the best country in the world. And I got a little secret for them. There's 197 other countries around the globe. There's 14,200 airports in the United States of America. Anybody who's not satisfied with this life can find another life in another country where they think they're going to find it better. And for those people who are stupid enough to take me up on the offer, they'd be smart enough to book that trip with a round-trip ticket, because as soon as they leave this country, they'll be right back again, because life doesn't get any better, and we owe no excuse to any other country, any other group of people to say that we are proud to be an American. Because as we stand here today, 1,343,812 men and women took up arms since the day of our first president and founding father, George Washington, and fought in every battle of every war, so you and I can have a life that everybody else endeavors to have.
Joe Torrillo, we thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you for the opportunity.
Back after this.
Politics and Profits with Rick Amato is brought to you by Liberatory Accounting, the IRS problem solvers. To find out how Liberatory Accounting can help you, call 877-6-SOLVER. That's 877-6-SOLVER.